No need to talk on sex topic. From human beings to animals, everyone knows what's sex. It looks nonsense. Why she is always talking about sex-related stuff? What the f***? I hate this sex word and the topic. Namaste everyone, this is Avanti, and today we're going to talk about why I talk about sex. Firstly, the word sex is not a dirty word. It is a natural part of life. जैसे हम खाते हैं, पीते हैं, पानी, सोते हैं, sex is another part of life. Sex is literally the reason you are here on this planet. Just putting it out there. And the more we are hush about it, I don't sex, ऐसे कैसे बोल सकते हैं? The more we continue the taboo around it and the stigma around it. As many of you may know, I've made videos talking about sex with my grandma, with my family, with my friends, with my partner, because it's absolutely normal. And I hope one day there comes a day when neither are we saying, oh, sex, and neither are we saying, oh my God, someone's so brave and powerful for talking about sex, because it's literally a normal part of life. So when I was 12, I had a tuition teacher who used to come about once a week to my house. We would focus on the subject, but then sometimes he would ask other questions, and that's pretty normal to make conversation with somebody. But he would ask me weird questions like, have you ever seen videos with older men and younger women? Have you read the book Lolita? And he would ask me these weird questions which just made me uncomfortable. I didn't know how to answer them, so I would pretend that he didn't ask them, and I would just go back to working on what I did. It got to a point where I would wear a t-shirt and shorts after school every single day, but when he would come, I started wearing layers and layers of clothing because it just made me uncomfortable the way he looked at me. Whatever, long story short, he touched me inappropriately. Fortunately, it wasn't to an extreme, and I know there are some of you who are watching this who might actually think to yourself, oh, big deal, at least he didn't, trigger warning, rape you, or at least, something worse could have happened, he just touched you. But it is absolutely not okay to touch anybody without their consent, definitely not in a power dynamic like that, and it's not okay to make somebody feel unsafe or to harass them. I share this story knowing that, again, some of you may be like, oh, it's not a big deal. Even worse has happened to me. I am so sorry because of the way somebody treated you like an object or sexually harassed you or abused you. That is absolutely not okay. And that's one of the biggest reasons we need to talk about sex. If we don't talk about sex, as a result, we don't talk about all the social, emotional, and physical things surrounding it. A lot of people think that if you talk to children about sex or you have sex ed, then everybody will just be having sex. But research actually shows in countries and curriculums and schools in which there is proper comprehensive sex ed, in fact, the age of people having sex is actually a little bit higher on average. Or people are empowered and safe in the choices that they make because the fact is, sex is everywhere. It's in the TV shows we watch, it's on the internet, it is on the billboards outside anywhere we're walking, it is everywhere. And if we don't talk about it at home, if we don't talk about it at school, people are still talking about it. So where are people going to find their information? Through terrible sources and misinformation. It's no secret, and again, trigger warning before I say this, it's no secret that India is unfortunately the rape capital of the world. And it has nothing to do with what a person is wearing or their gender or their age. People as young as 6 months old are being raped. Rapists are as young as 14 or even younger. We have failed as a society if a 14-year-old human thinks it's okay to exert themselves on somebody through a part of their body without their consent. We have failed. Consent is basically permission, and it is important before anything in life, but especially when it comes to sex. And we all need to know all the things. Again, when we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about the fact that it's actually illegal for somebody who is an adult to engage in sexual activity with you if you are a minor. It is illegal because not only is it often in a coercion situation where somebody's being forced to do something, But there's a huge power dynamic, and that's when it becomes hard to freely give consent. There have been literal court cases where somebody has raped another human, and they've said, oh, well, now your izzat, your honor, the person who has been raped, their honor has gone down in society, so just might as well marry the person. It is possible, by the way. Marital rape exists. Marital rape should be a crime. It is not criminalized in India yet, but there are petitions being shown to the court. Just because you're married to somebody doesn't give you a license to have sex with them whenever you want. You still have to be respectful of one another. I talk about sex because it's important for people to feel safe. It's important for people to feel informed in the decisions that they make. When I talk about sex, I'm not suggesting that everybody should have sex. I think there is a time and place for everything, and when you personally feel emotionally, mentally, physically ready. I decided to have sex before, I'm not married, so I decided to have sex before getting married, but to me it was important that I felt like I was in love with the person I wanted to have sex with. Some other people choose to have more casual situations, some other people choose to wait until marriage, and some people choose to not have sex at all, and all of those are valid options. And in all situations, everyone deserves the right and access to equal information about all things surrounding it. Because it's not just about consent, it's also about the consequences. It's also about the safety. What are the consequences of sex? Well, number one, you can get pregnant, especially if you have a vagina and a uterus. So, do you know how to prevent pregnancy? Are you fully equipped with knowledge on contraceptives? Even if you're a penis owner, a lot of penis owners don't know all the things about their penis because they don't understand whether it's the hygiene, do you have foreskin or not? How do you clean that? What happens if you see certain redness or not? Does that mean anything? Yes, it could mean something. It could mean, for example, you have an infection. What kind? It could also potentially be a sexually transmitted infection. There's all of these things that we don't talk about. Beyond our schools and our homes, many times we don't even have access to resources, doctors even, that are judgment-free. I know a handful of gynecologists who are absolutely incredible, and if you know somebody, please share it in the comments below. Even if you find them, sometimes they're all over the place and they're not as centralized. I was looking for clinics or just places that, like a one-stop shop people could go to, and I came across one recently. It's called Proactive for Her. They are a judgment-free, digital-first kind of one-stop shop for all your healthcare needs, particularly for women, but they are inclusive of all genders. And they are confidential, which is the most important thing when it comes to healthcare like this. They're broad-minded and queer-affirmative and sex-positive and patient-centric, which is so important because so often you will find people and doctors superimposing themselves on you. And I don't blame them because even within our medical training, you don't always have situations where people are open-minded. Part of the reason I can talk to my grandma so openly and freely about sex is because she's a doctor. So for her, the word penis and vagina are just parts of your body. She's like, hey guy, this is normal, you know? And even within our resources, sometimes you go somewhere and you get help once and then that's it. Very few people have, obviously during COVID, there's more and more digital, but very few people have adapted to what that digital, is like. They're really cool because they have digital consultations, teleconsultations, and a long-term approach, and they function all across India. I will include some of their links and stuff below. I literally reached out to them to partner with them for this because literally we don't have these resources, so it's so important to have these resources. We talked about safety, emotionally, mentally, physically. We talked about access to knowledge about consequences, when it comes to pregnancy and prevention. I'll mention a few forms of contraceptives. I'll make a proper video on that if you would like. Please let me know, just for basic knowledge. But you are also at risk of getting infections and diseases, which can be sexually transmitted. Some of these infections, they're called STIs or STDs, can stay asymptomatic, which means they don't necessarily show any symptoms for years on end, and they can affect you as a human. If we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about how to protect ourselves against these, we don't talk about how to protect ourselves against pregnancy, if that's something you don't want at the moment. Super quick, although I'll make a proper video about this. Contraceptives, there's two types. There is barrier methods and non-barrier methods. Barrier methods is what protects the skin-to-skin contact, so something like a condom or a dental dam or a diaphragm. I'll make a proper video about this, but I just want you to know. And the cool thing about barrier methods is they prevent pregnancy, but they also prevent against infections. Not all, but most. Other forms of birth control are things like the pill, which you may have heard of. There's 2 types. There's one that's the emergency pill. That's the other thing. We see ads for Plan B, whatever, I-pill, or whatever it is that you take after you might have unprotected sex. Taking those frequently is really bad for your health. They should only be taken, that's why they're called emergency contraceptives, in an emergency. Instead, if you are somebody who's looking for more long-term birth control, and people use birth control for a variety of reasons, not just for pregnancy. Birth control sometimes can help out with acne, help out with getting certain other things under control. That's why having doctors and having resources is really important that you can go to. Now, I've told you about why I talk about sex, why safety and talking about that is important, some of the consequences. Let's also get to the fact that sex can actually be pleasurable, and it is for several people. It can be a way for you to connect with your partner. It can be something that's fun. It can be something, after having sex, you often, essentially you stimulate something called oxytocin, which is a hormone that promotes pair bonding. So that's why the after sex cuddle is usually really nice, because it might promote bonding between you and your partner. And again, all of these things are facets, right? To everything there's good and bad. To everything, it can be pleasurable, but there is also consequences. We make so many jokes about dudes jerking off and blah, blah, blah. We don't make the same jokes about women masturbating. I've done a whole video about masturbation and particularly the double standards around it. Here is the thumbnail of it if you haven't seen it yet. But again, I talked about that not because I want to talk about masturbation. I think everybody should masturbate. No, I think it's a normal part of life. And like with everything in life, everything has its good and its bad. Everything needs to be done in moderation. What every single human being on this earth, and on Mars, if there are humans on Mars, deserve is access to information. Being sexy, or feeling sexy, and being sexualized are 2 very different things. One might feel sexy, and maybe clothing helps them feel a certain way, maybe just confidence helps them feel sexy, whatever it is. That is an internal piece of somebody feeling comfortable with their body. Being sexualized is when somebody else does that to you in a way that you have not asked for or not called for. What somebody wears has absolutely nothing to do with them wanting or not wanting sex, and particularly with you. It has nothing to do with you. Most people wear things for themselves. Please understand that. If somebody is moving in a certain way, that does not mean they want to have sex. They might just be feeling very confident within themselves. Somebody wearing something or not wearing something is not an invitation for you to perceive them a certain way. Too often, if somebody has had sex with more than one person, you call them a slut or you call them a whatever. In most cases, most people who have vaginas, most women, oh, she's such a slut, she's a blah, blah, blah. Whereas a lot of guys, oh, kya score mara, are wah. Yes, as I mentioned, this video is a lot of me having disdain. There's also some incredible sex educators who make amazing content about this, who have studied it or been certified in certain courses. I will also include some of their links in the description below because it's important that we have access to that information. If you're looking for where you can get access, there's pages, communities, there's Proactive for Her that I mentioned. All their links will be below. I'll include a booking gynecologist link, a STI link that's discount free, all of that. Everything will be in the description. So to sum it up, why do I talk about sex? For us all to have safer, healthier choices, access to information. The same reason I make videos about education, to give people access to that information and opportunities and exposure, which I grew up lucky to have. If you haven't seen any of the videos with me talking with Aji or with others, or please watch the videos of some of the incredible sex educators I mentioned below. Please check out Proactive for Her's resources, all of the above. If you agreed with anything I said, if you would like to comment on anything I said, please do. If you've been watching till this point, please comment below. Consent is sexy. So anyway, any videos you want me to make about anything within sex, whether I mentioned contraception, contraceptives, like sex ed generally, just any questions you have, please let me know in the comments below. We're actually working on a sex ed series, so we can hopefully give you some, information that is medically accurate, all of the things completely verified, and sending you all lots and lots of love. Okay, take care. Bye.